Let's get real. Most people are too afraid to tell you to your face that they don't like you. Instead, they hide behind fake smiles, hollow compliments, and forced politeness. I've been there too, thinking someone was a friend, only to find out they were secretly hoping for my downfall. It's brutal, but here's the truth. If you don't recognize the signs, you'll end up wasting your time and energy on people who, deep down, can't understand you. So, let's cut through the BS and talk about the signs that someone dislikes you but is hiding it. You might not like what you hear, but it's better to face the truth than live in denial. 1. They're always joking about your flaws. We all know that one person who loves to joke, especially when the joke is on you. They'll pick at your quirks, your mistakes, your little imperfections, and they do it with a smile, saying, "I'm just messing with you." It seems harmless at first, but let's not kid ourselves. These jokes are often more than just playful banter. They're calculated digs cleverly disguised as humor, meant to chip away at your self-esteem bit by bit. I remember a time when I was close to someone who always seemed to have something to say about me. How I dressed, the way I spoke, even the projects I was working on. At first I laughed it off, thinking it was all in good fun, but as time went on, I noticed a pattern. The jokes were always aimed at my perceived weaknesses, never at my strengths. It wasn't long before I started second-guessing myself, wondering if maybe I was the problem, if maybe these flaws were as glaring as they made them out to be. Here's where the controversy kicks in. People who consistently joke about your flaws aren't doing it out of affection. They're testing the waters to see how much disrespect you'll take. It's a subtle form of manipulation, a way for them to assert dominance while keeping you in your place. They're telling you in no uncertain terms that you're beneath them. And the most insidious part, they get away with it because we've been conditioned to believe that if we can't take a joke, we're the ones with the problem. But let's flip that script. I'm here to tell you there's nothing wrong with standing up for yourself when a joke crosses the line. In fact, it's essential. You deserve to be around people who lift you up, not those who knock you down just to get a cheap laugh. True friends don't need to point out your flaws to feel better about themselves. They celebrate your strengths and help you work through your weaknesses without making you the butt of the joke. I've seen it happen time and again. People who let these kinds of jokes slide, thinking it's easier to keep the peace than to make waves. But here's the deep truth. Allowing others to disrespect you, even in jest, is a slippery slope. It starts with small comments, but over time, those jokes can wear you down, making you question your worth. And the more you allow it, the more they'll push, until you're left doubting yourself. All because you didn't want to seem too sensitive. I had to learn this the hard way. I realized that by laughing along, I was giving them permission to keep going. I was complicit in my own disrespect. It wasn't until I started pushing back, setting boundaries, that I noticed a shift, not just in how they treated me, but in how I saw myself. I stopped letting their words define me and started owning my narrative. So, here's my advice. The next time someone makes a joke at your expense, don't just laugh it off. Ask yourself, is this really funny, or is there something more going on here? And if the answer is the latter, don't be afraid to call them out. It might be uncomfortable. It might even end the friendship. But your self-respect is worth far more than someone's misguided sense of humor. In the end, life's too short to surround yourself with people who can't see your value. If their idea of friendship is constantly pointing out your flaws, then it's time to find new friends. The ones who truly care about you will never need to put you down to feel good about themselves. So stand tall, speak up, and don't let anyone reduce you to a punchline. 2. They give compliments that sting like insults. We've all been there. Someone gives you a compliment, but instead of feeling good, you're left with a bitter aftertaste, like you've just been slapped with a velvet glove. It's the kind of compliment that makes you pause and think, wait, was that a compliment or an insult? And here's the harsh reality. Often it's a bit of both. These backhanded compliments are a subtle, almost sneaky way for people to undermine you while pretending to be kind. I remember a time when I was working on a big project that I was incredibly proud of. After putting in countless hours of hard work, I finally shared it with a group of colleagues. One of them, someone I thought was a supporter, said with a smile, "Wow, this is actually pretty good for someone like you." I stood there stunned. On the surface, it seemed like a compliment, but those last few words, "for someone like you," hit me like a ton of bricks. What did that even mean? Was I not supposed to be capable of doing good work? And that's the controversy here. These so-called compliments are laced with a hidden agenda. They're not meant to uplift you. They're designed to keep you in your place. It's a power play, a way for the person giving the compliment to assert their superiority while making you doubt your own abilities. They're saying, "I see you trying, but you'll never be as good as me." It's toxic, but it's wrapped up in such a pretty package that you almost miss the poison inside. Let's be real. People who give backhanded compliments are often insecure themselves. They see your potential, your strengths, and it scares them. So they use these sly little digs to keep you second-guessing yourself, to make sure you don't rise too high. It's like they're patting you on the back while holding you down with the other hand. And here's where it gets even more controversial. We've all done it at some point. Maybe not intentionally, but we've all let our insecurities slip out in the form of a compliment that's meant to remind someone else of their place. But here's the deep message. You don't have to accept this disguised hostility. You have the power to reject it, to see it for what it really is, a reflection of their own insecurities, not a measure of your worth. When someone says, "You're smarter than you look," or "This is good considering you're new at this," you don't have to swallow it whole. Call it out for what it is, even if it makes things awkward, because if you don't, you're allowing them to dictate how you see yourself, and that's a power you should never hand over to anyone. I've learned to recognize these compliments for what they are, a mirror reflecting someone else's insecurities, and when you see it that way, it loses its sting. Instead of internalizing it, you can almost laugh it off, because at the end of the day, their words say more about them than they ever will about you. So here's what I do now. When I receive a backhanded compliment, I don't let it slide. I'll respond with something like, "Thanks, but what do you mean by that?" It forces them to confront the insult hidden in their words, and more often than not, it puts them on the spot. They're suddenly aware that you're not playing their game, and it's amazing how quickly their tune changes. The takeaway: don't let anyone's veiled negativity define you. Whether it's a well-meaning friend, a jealous colleague, or even a family member, remember this: your worth isn't up for debate. Compliments should lift you up, not tear you down. If someone's words leave you questioning yourself, it's time to question their intentions instead. Life is too short to waste on people who can't genuinely celebrate your successes. Surround yourself with those who see your value and aren't afraid to let you know it, without any strings attached. 3. They subtly exclude you from plans. It's the little things that sting the most, like realizing that your so-called friends accidentally forgot to invite you to that dinner, that party, or that weekend getaway. They'll swear it was an oversight, that it was a last-minute thing. Or worse, they'll assume you were too busy anyway. But let's be real. These aren't accidents. This is social exclusion in its sneakiest form, and it's a clear sign that you're not as valued as you think. I've been on the receiving end of this too many times, I remember checking my phone one weekend and seeing pictures of a group of friends having a great time at an event I would have loved to attend. The kicker: not a single person mentioned it to me beforehand. When I casually brought it up later, they were full of excuses. "Oh, we thought you were busy," or "It was such a last-minute plan." But deep down, I knew the truth. If they wanted me there, they would have made sure I knew about it. And here's where the controversy comes in. We've been conditioned to make excuses for people who exclude us. We tell ourselves, "It's not a big deal," or "I'm sure it wasn't personal." But let's call it what it is. It's personal. When people consistently leave you out, it's because they've made a decision about your place in their life. They don't see you as essential to their group, and that hurts. Controversy comes in. We've been conditioned to accept busy as a valid reason to be pushed aside. But let's be honest, people make time for what and who they care about. If they're constantly busy when it comes to you, it's not about their schedule, it's about their priorities. And that's a hard pill to swallow, because it forces you to confront the reality that you might not be as important to them as they are to you. The harsh reality is that busy is often a polite way of saying, "I don't want to spend time with you." It's easier for them to blame it on their schedule than to admit that they're choosing not to include you in their life. It's a passive-aggressive way of keeping you at arm's length without having to deal with the confrontation that would come with telling you the truth. They want to keep you on the hook just in case, without actually investing in the relationship. I've been on both sides of this. There were times when I was the one making excuses because I didn't know how to tell someone that I'd outgrown the friendship. But being on the receiving end taught me a valuable lesson. It's better to be honest, even if it's uncomfortable, than to string someone along with excuses. When I finally called out my friend on always being busy, the conversation was awkward, but it was necessary. It gave me the clarity I needed to move on and invest my time and energy in relationships where I was valued. Here's the deep message: your time is precious, and so is your energy. Don't waste it on people who can't be bothered to make time for you. If someone is constantly too busy for you, it's time to reassess the relationship. You deserve to be around people who are excited to see you, who make an effort to include you in their lives, not just when it's convenient for them, but because they genuinely enjoy your company. It's important to recognize that people change, and so do relationships. Sometimes we hold on to people out of habit, nostalgia, or fear of being alone, even when they've clearly moved on. But there's strength in letting go, in acknowledging that you deserve more than someone's leftover time. It's not about being needy or demanding. It's about valuing yourself enough to walk away from those who don't value you. 4. They roll their eyes or give you condescending looks. You know that feeling when you're in a group and you say something, only to be met with a roll of the eyes or a dismissive look. It's a punch to the gut, right? Those little gestures speak volumes. It's a clear indicator that they're not just uninterested in what you have to say. They're actively dismissing you. I've been in situations where I shared my thoughts on a topic I was passionate about, only to be met with eye rolls and sarcastic comments. At first, I brushed it off, thinking maybe I was just being sensitive. But after a while, it became evident. Their reactions weren't just a matter of differing opinions. It was their way of signaling to everyone else in the room that I didn't deserve to be taken seriously. The truth is, rolling your eyes or giving condescending looks is a silent but powerful form of disrespect. It's a way for someone to belittle you without saying a word, to undermine your confidence while pretending it's all in good fun. Here's where the controversy lies. Many people brush off these gestures, telling themselves it's just part of their personality. But here's the reality check. These behaviors are toxic, and they have a profound effect on your self-worth. And here's the kicker. People who roll their eyes at you are often projecting their own insecurities. They feel threatened by your confidence, your knowledge, or your ability to articulate your thoughts. So instead of engaging with you on the same level, they choose to demean you. It's a classic power move, and the most unfortunate part. It often works. When you're met with constant eye rolls and dismissive looks, it can wear you down and make you question your own worth. I've learned to address this behavior head-on. The next time someone rolls their eyes at something I say, I'll call it out. "Did you just roll your eyes? What's that about?" It puts them on the spot and forces them to reconsider their behavior. And more importantly, it reminds me that I won't tolerate that kind of disrespect. So here's the takeaway. Don't let anyone diminish your voice or your worth. Eye rolls and condescending looks are signs that someone is attempting to exert power over you, and you have every right to challenge that. Surround yourself with people who respect your opinions, who appreciate your insights, and who lift you up instead of tearing you down. Life's too short to waste on those who can't handle your brilliance. 5. They avoid physical contact like the plague. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Physical contact, or rather the lack of it. We're not just talking about romantic relationships here. Physical contact is a basic human interaction, a way of connecting and building trust. So what does it mean when someone goes out of their way to avoid even the most casual touch? The answer isn't pretty. They're sending a clear signal that they're uncomfortable around you, and it's time to pay attention. I once had a colleague who seemed to recoil every time I reached out for a handshake or a friendly pat on the back. At first, I thought I was imagining things, but then I noticed it wasn't just me. They were warm and tactile with everyone else, but when it came to me, it was like I had the plague. It wasn't long before I realized that their avoidance of physical contact was more than just a quirk. It was a deliberate effort to keep me at a distance. Here's the controversial part. Physical contact is a natural part of human interaction, and when someone consistently avoids it, they're communicating a lack of comfort or connection. Sure, some people just aren't touchy-feely, and that's okay. But when it's selective, when they're fine hugging others but stiffen up around you, it's a red flag that something's off. They might not dislike you enough to say it outright, but their body language is doing all the talking. And let's be honest, we've all been there on both sides of the equation. Maybe you've avoided a handshake or leaned back when someone got too close because you just weren't feeling the vibe. Or maybe you've been on the receiving end, wondering why someone always seems to flinch when you're around. It's uncomfortable, it's awkward, and it's often a sign that the relationship isn't as strong as you'd like to think. But here's the deeper truth. Physical contact is a fundamental part of human connection. It's how we show trust, warmth, and empathy. When someone avoids it with you, they're not just avoiding touch, they're avoiding closeness, intimacy, and vulnerability. They're keeping you at arm's length, literally and figuratively, and that's a clear indication that there's an underlying issue in the relationship. I've learned to pay attention to these cues, even when it's hard to admit what they mean. There was a time when I ignored the signs, convincing myself that someone's reluctance to get close was just a personality trait. But the more I reflected on it, the more I realized that it was about me and our relationship. When I finally confronted the situation, it led to some tough conversations and, in some cases, the end of the relationship. But it also freed me from the frustration of wondering why things felt off. So here's the deep message. Don't ignore the signs. When someone avoids physical contact with you, it's more than just a preference. It's a statement about their level of comfort and connection with you. If you notice this pattern, don't be afraid to address it. It might lead to a deeper understanding, or it might reveal that the relationship isn't as solid as you thought. Either way, it's better to confront the truth than to live in denial. And remember, you deserve relationships where physical contact isn't something to be avoided, but something that happens naturally and comfortably. Whether it's a friendly hug, a handshake, or just sitting close without feeling awkward, these small gestures build trust and connection. If someone consistently avoids them, it's a sign that something's not right. Don't be afraid to ask the tough questions, and if necessary, make the tough decisions. Life's too short to be surrounded by people who keep you at a distance, literally and figuratively. 6. They disappear when you need support. Let's get real. Nothing reveals the true nature of a relationship like a crisis. When the going gets tough, you find out who your real friends are. So, what does it say about someone when they vanish the moment you need them the most? It's not just a sign of flakiness, it's a neon warning that they're not as invested in you as you might have thought. And let's face it, when someone pulls a disappearing act during your darkest hours, it's not just hurtful, it's a betrayal. I learned this the hard way during a particularly rough patch in my life. I was dealing with a major personal issue, something that really shook me to my core. Naturally, I turned to the people I considered close friends, expecting some level of support, even if it was just a text or a quick call. But guess what? Crickets. The people I thought would be there for me suddenly had every excuse in the book. I'm so swamped at work. Sorry, I'm just really busy right now. I'll check in with you later. Spoiler alert, they never did. Here's where it gets controversial. People love to talk about how they'll always be there for you, but when push comes to shove, many of them are only around for the good times. They'll party with you, laugh with you, and enjoy the high points of your life. But the minute things get real, they're nowhere to be found. It's easier for them to ghost you than to deal with your pain or discomfort. They don't want to be dragged into your problems because, deep down, they don't care enough to be there when it counts. And let's be brutally honest, true support isn't about convenience. It's about being there when it's hard, when it's uncomfortable, and when it's the last thing you want to do. The people who disappear when you need them most aren't just being inconsiderate. They're showing you exactly where you stand in their life. They're saying, without words, your problems aren't worth my time. I remember feeling absolutely gutted when I realized that the people I'd been there for in the past, during their breakups, their family dramas, their career setbacks, couldn't be bothered to return the favor. It was a wake-up call, and not a pleasant one. But it was also a lesson I needed to learn. Not everyone who smiles in your face is truly in your corner. Here's the deep message. Support is the foundation of any meaningful relationship. It's easy to be around when everything's going well, but the real test of a relationship is how people respond when things fall apart. If someone disappears the moment you need them, they're not just failing you. They're showing you that they were never really there in the first place. But don't let their absence make you bitter. Let it make you better. Use it as a filter to sift out the people who don't deserve a place in your life. The ones who stick around, who check in, who show up even when it's inconvenient. Those are the people who truly matter, and those are the relationships you should nurture and cherish. In the end, life is too short to invest in fair-weather friends. Surround yourself with people who will stand by you in the storm, not just bask in the sunshine. Because when you find those rare individuals who stick around when the chips are down, you've found something worth holding on to. And as for those who disappear, let them go. They've already shown you their true colors. 7. They gossip about you behind your back. Gossip. It's the social poison that spreads faster than wildfire and can burn down relationships in an instant. The thing about gossip is that it's never as innocent as people make it out to be. When someone you consider a friend talks behind your back, they're not just sharing a harmless story. They're actively sabotaging your trust, your reputation, and your relationship. And let's be real, when they gossip about you, it reveals a fundamental disrespect for your character. I once had a friend who seemed supportive on the surface, but loved to dish out private information as if it were public property. It didn't take long before I caught wind of them bad-mouthing me to others, people I barely knew. It was a shocking revelation that left me feeling betrayed and vulnerable. This person wasn't just sharing my business. They were manipulating my narrative, painting me in a negative light, and putting a wedge between me and others. Here's the controversial part. Gossip is a toxic behavior that often masks deeper insecurities and issues. When someone feels the need to talk about you instead of confronting you directly, it's a reflection of their own shortcomings, not yours. They're projecting their fears, jealousy, or insecurities onto you, creating a narrative that suits their agenda. So what do you do when you find out someone has been gossiping about you? You confront it. I know it's uncomfortable, but ignoring the situation only gives it power. When I finally addressed the issue with my friend, it led to an explosive conversation that revealed so much about their character. It turned out they were grappling with their own insecurities and felt threatened by my successes. Instead of having an open dialogue with me, they chose to undermine me instead. The deep message here is this: gossip is a sign that someone isn't your true friend. Friends lift you up. They don't tear you down behind your back. If someone is gossiping about you, it's time to reevaluate their place in your life. You deserve relationships built on trust, loyalty, and open communication, not backstabbing and petty drama. And remember, even if you're the target of their gossip, don't let it define you. People will talk, but your worth isn't determined by their opinions or narratives. Focus on the relationships that matter, the ones built on respect and mutual support. When you surround yourself with genuine people, the gossip fades into the background, and you're left with the strength of true friendships. So here's the bottom line: if someone is gossiping about you, don't give them the satisfaction of letting it affect you. Confront it, learn from it, and move on. Life's too short to waste on people who can't keep your name out of their mouths. Surround yourself with those who celebrate you, not those who belittle you. The true friends will be there to uplift you and defend you, and those are the relationships worth cherishing.